Lawyers juggle thousands of documents, yet their desks are often clearer than ours at home. Seniors, meanwhile, drown in piles of Medicare bills, bank statements, and tax letters. But what if you could borrow 10 of their habits and finally breathe again in your own home? Picture this. A lawyer handles hundreds of contracts in a single week, court briefs stack higher than a chair, and sensitive case files arriving by the hour. Yet, when you step into their office, you often see order, not chaos. Now think about the kitchen table in many senior homes across America. Stacks of unopened mail, old medical summaries that should have been tossed years ago, and receipts so faded they're impossible to read. It's not just clutter, it's a silent weight. For seniors over 60, paperwork can trigger stress every time the phone rings or the mailbox creaks open. What lawyers know, and what most of us were never taught, is that organization is less about perfection and more about habits, repeatable systems that turn disorder into calm. Imagine being able to put your hand on any insurance paper in seconds. Imagine no longer fearing tax season or medical claims. Imagine the relief of knowing your children won't inherit boxes of confusing files. That peace is possible. Stay with me. Because the very first habit is so powerful it can erase decades of paper buildup in less than an afternoon, and you may wonder why no one told you sooner. Meet Maribel Quinn, 69, from Vermont. For most of her life, she was like many seniors, papers everywhere, tucked into drawers, stuffed into showboxes, or hidden under the bed in old grocery bags. She had bills mixed with birthday cards, tax forms stacked alongside recipes, and faded insurance letters buried so deep she forgot they even existed. Every time the phone rang from a doctor's office or a bank, her heart would skip because she wasn't sure if she could find the right paper in time. This constant uncertainty turned her golden years into something heavier than they should have been. But here's what makes Mirabel's story different. Before retiring, she had spent decades as a clerk in a small law office. Day after day, she watched attorneys handle mountains of documents, cases worth millions of dollars, wills that determined family legacies, medical records that decided court battles. What amazed her wasn't the number of papers but the way they were controlled. Folders were neat, deadlines never missed, and nothing important ever went missing. Even when stress was high, their desks never looked like a battlefield. Mirabel started wondering, if lawyers can control chaos at that scale, why couldn't she do the same at home? When she retired, she finally decided to put that question to the test. Slowly, she began applying the habit she had seen for years, separating papers by category, marking what needed action, setting aside time for regular reviews. At first, it felt unusual, even unnecessary, but within months, the difference was striking. The showboxes emptied. The drawer she once dreaded opening became her calm drawer. She no longer feared surprise phone calls because she knew exactly where every document lived. Even her children noticed. They no longer worried about sorting through piles if something happened to her. Mirabel's story isn't about perfection, it's about transformation. She proves that at any age, you can borrow proven habits and finally breathe again in your own home. Habit 1. The Statute of Limitations Rule. Mirabel learned one powerful truth from her years in the law office. No lawyer holds onto paper forever. Every single document has an expiration date, and once that date is passed, it's gone, shredded, recycled, or digitized. That was the opposite of how she had lived for years. At home, she had closets stuffed with outdated tax returns, showboxes of bills from the 1970s, and even warranty papers for a washing machine that had long since broken down. Each time she tried to tackle the mess, a voice whispered, "Better keep it. You might need it someday." That someday never came, but the clutter stayed, pressing down on her every time she opened a drawer. The turning point came when she remembered how lawyers worked. Attorneys deal with mountains of paper, court filings, contracts, client records, and yet she never once saw an office drowning in forgotten files. Why? Because they live by the statute of limitations. Once a paper no longer has legal or financial purpose, it's removed. That insight struck Mirabel like lightning. If the professionals trusted with people's futures could let go, she could too. So she started learning the timelines. She discovered that tax documents don't need to be stored forever. 7 years is usually the maximum, and for many situations only 3. Receipts. Once they were entered into her budget or no longer tied to warranties, they could go. utility bills, gone after payment cleared. Even medical statements, which had felt untouchable, didn't all need to be saved. Only the most recent and the ones tied to insurance claims or deductible tracking. The first bag of shredded paper felt strange, almost like betrayal. But the second felt lighter, and by the third she was smiling. Soon, entire shelves were freed. Where piles once stood, she placed framed family photos. Where tax forms had sat for decades, she now kept her knitting basket. Her drawers no longer produced fear, but relief. Foreseen is, this rule is life-changing. Not only does it clear space, it also removes the burden of leaving boxes of meaningless paper for children to sort after we're gone. It creates dignity in the present and peace for the future. Think about your own life. How many dusty files are you still keeping, convinced they might matter? The truth is, most don't. And as Mirabel discovered, letting go isn't just about organization. It's about reclaiming calm. Clearing clutter was only the first step, though. What she did next wasn't just about saving space. It was about protecting her family from confusion and conflict when it mattered most. Habit 2. The case file system. When Mirabel first retired, she kept every paper in one place. Show boxes, plastic bags, and drawers that bulged with no clear order. Tax returns mixed with medical notes. Her mortgage papers were buried under old holiday cards. And even her social security letters were nowhere to be found when she actually needed them. The confusion was constant. Every phone call asking for a document felt like a test she was sure to fail. Then she remembered what she had seen for years at the law office. No matter how overwhelming the cases were, attorneys never allowed different matters to mix together. Every case had its own file, with a clear label, neat tabs, and only what belonged inside. That structure kept chaos from spilling into their work, and she realized she could adopt the same principle at home. So she began creating what she called her life files. Medicare had its own binder. Social security letters had another. Banking, housing, insurance, even her pension documents each found their own dedicated place. She bought simple, clear binders with dividers so everything had a category and nothing got lost. At first, it felt tedious, pulling piles apart and deciding what belonged where. But once it was done, her stress levels dropped instantly. No longer did she shuffle through stacks of papers just to find one letter. Everything had a home, and when she needed something, she knew exactly where to go. The true gift of this system wasn't just her own relief. It was the peace of mind it gave her family. Her children, who once dreaded the idea of sorting through a clutter someday, now knew that if something happened to her, they could walk to the shelf, open a binder, and find exactly what mattered. There would be no arguments, no confusion, no frantic searching at the worst possible time. For Mirabel, that sense of control wasn't just organization, it was love in action. Would your children know where to find your will if they needed it tomorrow? The next habit will answer a problem even more urgent. What to do with papers that can't wait another day. Habit 3. The red stamp trick. One of Mirabel's biggest frustrations before decluttering her paperwork was that urgent bills and letters seemed to vanish right when she needed them. A hospital invoice might get buried under magazines, a utility bill would slide between newspapers, and by the time she noticed them again, the due date had already passed. The stress of late fees and the embarrassment of calling companies to explain were exhausting. Then she remembered a simple but powerful habit from the law office. Lawyers never left anything to chance. Urgent papers were flagged immediately, often with a bright red stamp or sticker. That way, no matter how many documents crossed the desk, the ones needing action stood out instantly. Inspired, Mirabel adapted this trick for her own home. She bought a pack of colored stickers from a dollar store, red, green, and yellow. From that day on, every incoming bill or document got tagged the moment it entered her house. Red meant urgent and due soon. Green meant it had been handled, paid, or completed. Yellow meant pending, something she might need to review, sign, or file later. Suddenly, her system wasn't just organized, it was visual and foolproof. Even if papers were stacked together, she could glance at the colors and know exactly what needed her attention first. The results were immediate. No more late notices, no more frantic searching. Her bills were paid on time, her insurance claims submitted before deadlines, and she even saved money by avoiding unnecessary fees. More importantly, her stress melted away. Instead of dreading her mail, she now felt in control. For seniors, especially those balancing Medicare statements, prescriptions, and multiple accounts, this simple color-coded system contained chaos into calm. And the benefits stretched beyond Mirabel herself. When her children visited, they instantly understood what each color meant. They could see at a glance which bills were still pending and which had been completed. That transparency gave them comfort, and it gave Mirabel dignity. She wasn't just getting by. She was managing her affairs with clarity. Do your bills sometimes get lost under magazines or newspapers? You're not alone. But the right system makes it almost impossible to miss what matters. And while color coding solved her daily stress, the fourth habit went deeper. It became the one thing that prevented painful family arguments after she was gone. Habit 4. Legacy binder for peace of mind. For years, Mirabel avoided the subject of what would happen to her papers if she suddenly became ill or passed away. Like many seniors, she felt uneasy facing those what ifs, so she did nothing and let the piles grow. But deep down, she knew that her family would be left with a nightmare, digging through closets, boxes, and drawers just to find her will or insurance policy. The thought of her children fighting or feeling lost during such a painful time weighed on her more heavily than she admitted. That's when she remembered another habit from her law office days. Attorneys always prepared a client binder. It was a single, organized file that contained every vital document needed for clarity and action. Nothing was left to chance. Mirabel decided to create her own version, a legacy binder. She bought a sturdy binder with dividers and began filling it with the essentials: her will, healthcare directives, power of attorney papers, insurance policies, pension details, and even a list of bank accounts. She added a section for passwords to important accounts, carefully secured, and instructions for household bills like electricity and water. For the first time, everything that truly mattered was in one place, easy to find. The process was emotional. Sorting through her will and healthcare wishes forced her to confront uncomfortable realities. But as the binder came together, she felt lighter, almost as if a weight had been lifted off her shoulders. And when she showed it to her children, the look on their faces confirmed she had done the right thing. They said it gave them comfort, knowing that when the day came, they wouldn't be left guessing or arguing about what she wanted. This binder wasn't about death. It was about love. It was Mirabel's way of caring for her family long after she could no longer speak for herself. Would your family know where to begin if something happened to you tonight? Creating a legacy binder might feel intimidating at first, but it brings peace, not just for you but for those you love most. And while this habit brings security, the fifth one takes things even further, because it involves embracing a tool that many seniors hesitate to trust. But once they do, it proves safer than they ever imagined. Habit 5. Digital Docket Control. For most of her life, Mirabel believed important papers had to be kept in their original form, tucked into envelopes, sealed in file folders, and stored on shelves. The idea of uploading them to a computer felt foreign, even risky. But after watching courts and law firms move toward digital dockets, she realized something powerful. Paper can be destroyed, but digital copies can be protected. Fires, floods, theft, or even a misplaced box could wipe out decades of records in seconds. By scanning her vital papers and saving them securely in the cloud, she gave herself a backup that no disaster could erase. She started small. Using a basic scanner and even her phone camera, she digitized her will, healthcare directives, social security statements, and insurance policies. Each file was labeled clearly by name and date, then uploaded to a password-protected folder in a secure cloud account. At first, the process felt intimidating, but the more she did it, the more confidence she gained. She even created a folder for family history, letters, recipes, and photographs, so her children and grandchildren could access them someday, no matter where they were in the world. The transformation was more than practical. It was emotional. Mirabel no longer feared that one accident could erase a life's paperwork. Instead of worrying about where her documents were stored, she knew they were accessible anytime, from any device, yet still protected behind strong passwords. She also gave her daughter access to the folder, ensuring that if something happened, the information would never be locked away. For seniors, this habit is a bridge between the old and the new. It doesn't mean abandoning paper completely. It means creating security and peace of mind by having both. Would you trust storing papers online, or do you feel safer with physical copies in your hand? The truth is, you don't have to choose one over the other. A combination ensures that no matter what life brings, your most important records remain safe. And while digitizing protects against loss, the next habit is just as crucial. It shields seniors from one of the fastest growing crime waves in America today. Habit 6. Confidentiality shred. For years, Mirabel did what so many seniors do. She tossed old bank statements, prescription summaries, and credit card offers straight into the trash. It felt harmless at the time, just one more piece of paper leaving the house. But when she learned that people over 60 are prime targets for identity theft, she realized she had been exposing herself to real danger. Thieves don't need much to cause chaos. A single account number or Medicare ID could be enough to open fraudulent accounts or drain savings. At the law office where she once worked, nothing ever went into the bin without first passing through a shredder. Lawyers protected client information with the same care they used in court. That memory came rushing back, and she knew it was time to adopt the same standard for herself. Mirabel invested in a small, inexpensive shredder that fit neatly beside her desk. Every week, usually on Saturday mornings, she set aside a few minutes to run papers through it. Expired insurance notices, outdated bank slips, old credit card offers, prescription summaries that had already been logged. All of it went through the shredder. The sound became almost comforting, like a ritual of protection. Over time, it stopped feeling like a chore and started feeling like an act of self-respect. The change was dramatic. She no longer worried that someone rifling through her trash could piece together her personal life. She knew her information was safe, her accounts protected, and her children wouldn't be left to untangle a financial mess caused by carelessness. What once felt like clutter now became an opportunity to build a shield around her identity. For seniors, this habit isn't just about tidiness. It's about survival in a world where scams and fraud are more common than ever. Do you shred sensitive papers or just toss them in the trash? It may seem small, but this habit could be the line between peace and regret. And while shredding secures the past, Maribel's seventh habit ensured the piles never got out of hand in the first place, keeping her home consistently free of paper overload. Habit 7. Monthly review session. Mirabel used to think paperwork had to be tackled in huge, exhausting cleanups, the kind that left her sore, frustrated, and swearing she'd never let things get so bad again. But inevitably, the piles would creep back, and months later she'd be staring at the same mountain of clutter. The turning point came when she remembered how lawyers managed their caseloads. No attorney ever waited until the end of the year to check files. They scheduled regular reviews so nothing was missed and no case slipped through the cracks. Inspired by that discipline, Mirabel decided to carve out a ritual for herself. The first Sunday of every month, she would sit down for 30 minutes and give her paperwork a full review. It wasn't complicated. She gathered the new mail, bills, and statements, then walked through each binder she had already set up. Anything outdated was shredded. Anything paid was marked and filed. Pending documents were moved to her yellow section so she wouldn't forget them. She updated her legacy binder with any changes, making sure her children would always find the most current versions of important papers. What once felt like an overwhelming task became a predictable, almost peaceful routine. She even started brewing a cup of tea and playing soft music to turn it into a moment of calm reflection instead of a chore. Within a few months, the difference was striking. Instead of piles building higher, the paper never got the chance. 30 minutes each month replaced hours of frantic catch-up. For Mirabel, the true victory wasn't just the order in her drawers. It was a sense of control she carried into every aspect of her life. No bill was missed, no file misplaced, no fear of being caught unprepared. If you had to pick one day for this, which would you choose? A small, consistent ritual can protect your peace far better than a massive cleanup once in a while. Mirabel's system showed that the key to staying free of clutter isn't about doing everything at once. It's about doing a little, regularly, with intention. But while this habit kept her home in order, the eighth habit touched something deeper. It's the one most seniors skip, yet it can literally save lives when unexpected health challenges appear. Habit 8. Substitution of counsel habit. For most of her life, Mirabel managed her paperwork alone. She prided herself on paying bills, keeping receipts, and filing away what mattered. But after a health scare at 68, she realized something uncomfortable. If she couldn't handle it one day, no one else would know where to begin. That thought frightened her more than any clutter ever had. At the law office, she had often seen attorneys leave a case. When that happened, there was a smooth substitution of counsel, where another lawyer stepped in seamlessly, using the same files, the same system, and the same notes. The client never had to suffer from a change. That memory gave her a spark of wisdom. She needed her own version of substitution at home. Mirabel chose her niece, a woman she trusted deeply, as her paper partner. She didn't just tell her where the legacy binder was. She walked her through the system step by step. She showed her which binder held Medicare statements, where her banking records lived, how her color-coded stickers worked, and how to access her digital files. She gave her niece copies of essential passwords, sealed in an envelope, and explained how to use them only if needed. This wasn't about giving up independence. It was about creating a safety net. The peace that followed was profound. Mirabel no longer lay awake at night worrying what would happen if she were hospitalized or worse. She knew her affairs wouldn't turn into a scavenger hunt or family conflict. Her niece felt honored to be trusted and relieved that she wouldn't have to guess in a crisis. For Mirabel's children, it was reassurance that someone else could step in and carry the load with clarity. Who could you trust to handle your paperwork if you couldn't? Many seniors avoid the question, thinking it means surrender. But in reality, it's about love, dignity, and foresight. By appointing a paper partner, Mirabel gave herself freedom to focus on living, not worrying. And while this habit protected her future, the ninth one transformed her present, by putting an end to papers scattering across every room in her home. Habit 9. The one desk rule. For years, Mirabel's home looked like a trail of unfinished business. Papers weren't confined to one area. They spilled across her dining table, crowded the nightstand in her bedroom, slipped between cookbooks in the kitchen, and even found their way into the garage. She joked that her bills had better travel habits than she did, but deep down the scattering caused constant frustration. Whenever she needed one important document, she'd have to retrace her steps, checking every surface until she found it. Otherwise, giving up and requesting a duplicate. The wasted time, the stress, and the feeling of being perpetually disorganized weighed on her. Then she thought back to the lawyers she worked for. No matter how big the case, every file had one home base, a desk, a drawer, or a cabinet where it belonged. Documents didn't wander the building. That discipline inspired Mirabel to create her own version at home, the one desk rule. She chose a small corner table near her living room window and declared it the single landing zone for every piece of paper that entered her house. Mail, bills, medical notes, receipts, all of it went straight there before being filed into binders or shredded. At first, the habit felt odd. She had to break years of tossing letters on the kitchen counter or leaving envelopes on her bed. But within weeks, the difference was remarkable. Instead of scanning 3 or 4 rooms for a missing statement, she only had to check one place. Her children also knew the rule. If they brought her mail, they dropped it on that table. The house instantly felt calmer, and Mirabel felt in control. She even decorated the desk with a lamp and a small plant, transforming it into a symbol of order rather than another cluttered surface. Where do papers pile up most in your house? The kitchen or the bedroom? Imagine the relief of knowing that from now on, everything lands in one place. For seniors, this rule removes the stress of scattered piles and gives back time and peace of mind. And while it simplified Mirabel's daily routine, the final habit went beyond systems or desks. It was the biggest mindset shift of them all, the one that changed how she viewed every piece of paper in her life. Habit 10. Think like a judge, not a hoarder. In the courtroom, judges don't waste time on noise. They focus only on the evidence that matters. Watching that principle in action stayed with Mirabel long after her years in the law office. When she began applying lawyer habits to her own paperwork, she realized the final and most powerful shift was not about binders, shredders, or even digital backups. It was about her mindset. For decades she had held on to papers out of fear. Fear of needing them someday, fear of making a mistake, or fear of letting go of something tied to her past. The result was that she became a keeper of everything, even things that no longer served her. But once she asked herself, would a judge keep this or dismiss it? The answer became clear. She began reviewing her papers with fresh eyes. If a document protected her, like her will, insurance policy, or healthcare directive, it stayed. If it guided her, like a current bank statement or medical summary, it stayed. If it inspired her, like a handwritten letter from her late husband or her granddaughter's drawing, it stayed. But everything else, from decades-old receipts to outdated warranties, was dismissed without guilt. She wasn't discarding memories. She was discarding noise. This mental shift was liberating. Instead of feeling like she was betraying her past, she understood she was honoring her present. Her home no longer felt like an archive of every mistake, payment, or purchase. It felt like a living space that reflected who she was now. Even more, her children no longer worried about being buried under boxes of meaningless papers. They knew that what remained truly mattered. What's one paper you could release today to feel lighter? For Mirabel, this final habit wasn't about organization. It was about dignity. By thinking like a judge instead of a hoarder, she gave herself permission to let go and keep only what carried value. In the end, that clarity brought her the greatest gift: peace in her home, calm in her mind, and confidence that her legacy would be defined by meaning, not clutter. Mirabel's home no longer feels like a dusty archive. What once looked like a storage unit of old bills and forgotten letters is now a space of calm and clarity. The dining table that used to sag under piles of mail is clear, holding only a vase of fresh flowers. Her shelves no longer bow with yellowing folders but display family photos and books she actually enjoys. For the first time in decades, she doesn't feel buried under paper. She feels free. Her children, too, notice the difference. Instead of worrying about what they'd face someday, they know exactly where to find every document. The legacy binder gives them reassurance. The digital files give them security, and the color-coded system gives them confidence that nothing is slipping through the cracks. Maribel herself feels lighter, her stress levels fading with every passing week. Evenings are no longer spent searching for lost papers or worrying about what she missed. They are spent in peace, reading, knitting, or sharing stories with her grandchildren. By adopting habits once reserved for busy lawyers, she reclaimed not just her paperwork but her time, dignity, and calm. Before you go, here's how you can hype this video and support this channel. On your YouTube app, scroll down and swipe left on the comment preview carousel until you see the hype button. Tap hype, choose how many points you want to give, and confirm. You get 3 free hypes every single week, and every one of them pushes this video higher so more seniors can discover it. If you hype often, you'll even earn a hype star badge, showing you're one of this channel's top supporters. While you're at it, don't forget to like this video, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss fresh wisdom that makes life lighter and more organized. Go ahead, tap hype, hit like, and join the Wise Aging Seniors community. Together, we can build a circle where seniors support each other, share practical tools, and find peace in the spaces we live.